afternoon and welcome to the People's Verdict. I'm your usual host, Patrick Soko, and today we have an interesting topic of discussion. We are discussing President Hakainde Hichilema's address to Parliament on the application of values and principles. And my guest on the program today is none other than the Patriotic Front CHILUBI constituency member of Parliament, Mr. MULENGA FUBE. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much. And I would like to say to greet the viewers who are good. I know that you are quite a good viewership. I would like to greet them this afternoon. It's already after. It's still afternoon, right?
It's still afternoon.
Okay.
Interesting. Honorable, we want to get your perspectives on various issues. We understand there has been quite topical issues, but also look at the President's address to the National Assembly on the application of values. On a scale of 1 to 10, first of all, how would you rate that address? And to do that, first of all, okay, we'll start with your perspective, but we'll also zero in on the other aspect and play some of the issues that came out of that activity that was on Friday, and we'll try to get some of the issues that were highlighted. But for now, we just want to get, on a scale of 1 to 10, Honorable, how would you rate that speech? Was it responsible in terms of talking about the application of values and principles?
Since this is not the first time the President is attending to that particular duty, which was under Article 9.2, though the values are in Article 8, I think he had room for improvement from the past experiences.
Why do you say so?
Given that particular background, I would give him 2 out of 10, and I would just 5.
Let's go.
Yes. To start with, speech writing and speeches about relevance, about, taking on board the current issues. Why have I given him 1 to 10? One, the attitude he has been attaching to his speeches is still living in the opposition. He's still in the past. The attitude is a bit of bitterness. You can even see when he's talking. When he's talking about, PF this, PF that, PF this, he's still in the past. It's more like you are disappointed in a particular relationship. You get to another relationship, then you keep on mentioning of how your boyfriend treated you. Even when you have an opportunity to create a different relationship with a different boyfriend or girlfriend, which may culminate into a proper marriage. And I think the President on that one is missing the point. He's even missing an opportunity. For instance, if I wish it's just that I left a speech, that is the shortest speech that I've seen in terms of written material in Parliament. But he had to barrage it with a lot of issues that were not even related. Where he always wants to carry on to tell people you should have social shame. Those are his citizens. I am his citizen. He is the Republican president. So I expect him to be above that level, really, where you come to Parliament to talk about how people store, how people, every time it's becoming boring. They gave him mandate, the Zambians, the 2.8 Zambians who rallied behind him, gave him mandate so that he can sort out the problems that he even talked about. He was lifting cooking oil. He used to lift Pamela, used to lift different things, and people are expecting him to swing in that direction. Currently, as we speak, we have got, even when he mentioned the national alcohol policy, we have got serious alcoholism in the nation. Much of it coming through the window of frustration by the young people. We have the figures of HIV and AIDS within especially the range of 15 to 24, going up. So what national values was he addressing? That's value number 1, which talks about morality and, ethics. When we talk about moral fabric, we have, for instance, a lot of people that are supposed to promote the moral fabric of the nation been given all sorts of, cases. I have a lot of priests that I know, a lot of pastors who have had vehicles grabbed because they were associated with ECL. One of my priests in my own constituency, who was even the chairperson for CDF, had this vehicle grabbed when it was even donated by Obrets. So when you want to talk about national values and principles, you also need to know that there are stakeholders involved in making sure that those national values and principles are implemented. Especially that when he came in, he removed the Minister of Religious Affairs and so forth and put it under the Vice President's office. You have seen that the Vice President's office is more concerned about disaster management than anything else. Maybe you need to give me evidence that the Vice President's office has been reaching out to churches and many other to consolidate. Because the window of the church, when I say the church or religious groups, which in this case includes the Muslims, the Baha'i, you know, you can mention all the none, because 95% of our Christian arrangement, our arrangement is Christian. 95, and I mean 95% of the Zambian, you know, religious scenario is Christian. But when we look at the way we are interfacing, the way we are listening, I can give you an example. When we had a constitutional question in 1991, Dr. Kaunda and the team had to listen to the church, from the church, so to speak, when they were gathered under the Cathedral of the Holy Cross. That is how Article 4 of our Constitution was changed to reintroduce multipartyism. So, what am I trying to underscore here? I'm trying to underscore the role of the church, the role of religious groups.
Are you in other ways implying that the role of church has not been well reinforced by the UPN administration?
It has been dwarfed. It has been dwarfed, if you ask me. I mean, even the last night, we had the social media wash with an issue of the synod. But when you look at that, I think it has been clarified that they were not visited. But there's no smoke without fire. There must be something baking elsewhere. Because you see, I cannot get surprised when we are talking about morality and ethics. The arbitrariness at which people have been arrested. Let me give you an example. The president always talks about how he was arrested. The way he has arrested the gentleman called Tari. Sometimes it's very even unethical to... I am saying he has arrested because some of the instructions we know, they come from there to arrest Tari. And, you know, the same cybercrime that they condemned. You know, when we are talking about the measure of morality, you are also talking about social justice. And when you are talking about social justice...
But in his speech, he did emphasize on social justice.
The president speaks, but he doesn't act on certain issues. We have heard the president's promises. Is he acting on those promises? No. The president is very good at speaking certain things, but action, no.
I also want to bring it to your attention. You mentioned the aspect of abolishing the Ministry of Religious Affairs, and that it undermines Zambia's moral position. And let's also look at the aspect of the Ministry of Gender.
Yes.
Have you also taken time to analyze what effect that has had, considering issues pertaining to violence, especially at household level?
Who is the gender minister currently?
Because at the moment we don't have a Ministry of Gender.
Yes.
It was also abolished.
So, if you abolish, you know, when we look at even the SADC protocol, which is championing the 50-50% representation, it starts from social and emotional issues. If the girl child is suppressed from the domestic level, if, for instance, a father has a 20 kwacha to spend on either a girl child or a boy child to take to school, and the father has the audacity to choose to spend on a boy child as opposed to a girl child, and says the girl child can get married, that's where the problem is. So even when you talk about the SADC protocol, we do not abide by it. When we talk about choosing of people that are supposed to occupy positions, you read Article 259, which talks about balancing in terms of gender, the differently challenged people, the youths and so forth. That article has not been followed. So when we talk about national values, it should be in tandem with any other article that supports national values. So if you talk about gender, there is a lot of going on. I mean, people are dying at hands of husbands and wives. you know, the girl child is being abused. Just the other day, we had the taxi driver raping a girl from I think from Roma girls, and she was raped. It had to take the members of the public to intervene. I am not saying that the president should climb down and get involved in such things. I am talking about the moral environment we are in. The moral environment we are in is not supportive. Because you see, there are risk factors. For a moral environment, we look at risk factors and protective factors. We have more risk factors than protective factors. Even in corruption.
Yes.
You tell me, it's not me who produces statistics. You pick the TIZ index on corruption.
Corruption has the same position.
No. You didn't read properly. Zambia had risen by 3 points.
3 points.
Yes, in terms of badness. Not in terms of goodness.
Yes.
Not in terms of goodness. So it has not maintained. For instance, if the president has been saying he has been fighting corruption, we expect it to lower down. Corruption is grant corruption. Corruption is institutional corruption. Corruption is state corruption. So corruption is one of the indicators that the nation is not going on the right direction. And I would have loved him to sweep in and interlink the causal effect of how does the issue of the living standards, the cost of living, interfere with morality. My brother, the reality is that we have a lot of these boarding, girls in the boarding schools and the like who are just surviving on their own. If they have to survive on their own, some of them, a reality is that they have resorted into selling their bodies, and at a tender age. So, as a government, which I am part of because of legislature, when we are budgeting for our citizens, we need to know how do we make sure that we know that also I'm taking into consideration that there are also private institutions.
Yes.
But government can regulate that any private institution which is opening a school of this level should have this confinement where people can be controlled, where people can have some discipline code. When it comes to public institutions, we can say public institutions should have this. For instance, the president talked about having reached out to people which he didn't prescribe, he didn't put in 2 different categories. About 500,000 plus to compared to 200,000 plus, which was there. That statistic does not apply in reality to anything serious. Me, I've been reaching out several times when I was in the NGO world. How we do those statistics is that you need to know how is it having an impediment on behavior change. You see? Because if you reach out, if I tell you, I find you in a bar and say you should not be drinking, I have no follow-up program to make sure that you have stopped drinking. And I should also monitor to say, okay, where are you drinking from? For instance, if there is also child prostitution, how do you feast on those child prostitutes? Those things are interlinked. Sorry, I'm using the word prostitute, but you can call them sex workers and the like.
Exactly.
That's a reality. So when you go to drink, what else do you follow? What motivates you to go and drink from a particular place? That's how we social scientists tackle these things. When you go to drink, for instance, from spot B, when you come out of that bar, are you coming out alone? Because alcohol is a driver of HIV. That we know.
Exactly.
Yes. So if it's a driver of HIV, how do we make sure that these young people who are consuming alcohol are also not involved in casual sex? We know that that's private behavior. You can't control it. But it can be minimized. By the nature you do some of the programs. Reaching out, having posters and say alcohol is bad, alcohol can cause this, can cause accidents, alcohol can cause this and that, it's not enough. It is about the trickle-down effect and the impact of the message that you are giving out. Then, you talk about him scoring, encouraging possibly, which he mentioned in the speech, when he was talking about as compared to 39 companies that are using Proud Zambian logo, we have now got 69. Yes, there is scale up, but are they empowered? Are they employing? How are we giving them incentive in an economic environment where we have got energy prices, when I say energy prices, I mean electricity and fuel going up, skyrocketing. How are they surviving? Have we given them a tax holiday like the way we have given those that are involved in mining? We know, for instance, that currently as Zambians, we are surviving on copper because it's the one posting 70+% on the export. But even when we are doing that, morality entails that I take care. In Bemba we say, it entails that I take care first of the people that are in my household before I look elsewhere. I need to know who is operating a barber shop. How have they been affected by the load shedding that was there? Do we need a stimulant package to boost them so that they can stabilize? If we raise the connection fee, how many businesses are we killing? Because when we raise the connection fee, we are killing certain businesses that operate along the lines of electricity. Electricity is an enabler as well as a facilitator of production. So those are moral issues. If you talk about fuel, which has been rising, like it's a free fall.
The argument would be it has been rising ever since the time of PF.
No.
That's what the advancement. That's
no.
Argument they continue to advance.
No. Look, I'll be dishonest to say that it never rose at the time of PF.
Yes.
When PF took over, fuel maximum was at 8.9 kwacha. Are you getting me? When PF left, after being there for 10 years, it remained at 17 kwacha. And when the current president was there, I remember him saying, PF, he made calculations. I don't know where he was getting those calculations. He made those calculations. He said PF has been stealing 3 kwacha from every liter of fuel. Okay, let us imagine PF was stealing a 3 kwacha from every liter of fuel. What is UPND stealing now? If PF was stealing fuel from every liter of 3 kwacha, of 17 kwacha, meaning that fuel, according to him, was supposed to be at 17 kwacha, at 14 kwacha with all the landing costs.
And when we ask that same question to UPND officials, they would say
subsidy.
There was no war in Ukraine and Russia.
No.
There was at the time PF was in office.
Look. When we talk about the war in Ukraine and Russia, without underplaying it, I'll be honest, it has had some effect on the global economics, which includes Zambia, because we are not an island.
Exactly.
But you cannot compare the harsh conditions that PF was tackling when the coronavirus, which is COVID-19, was at its apex. You can't compare. The effect was direct. The whole economy was locked worldwide. Has the economy been locked worldwide? And even if anything, when you first consider the 2, 3, even the 4th increment that UPND made was before the war in Russia started. It is not the war in Russia that made them structure the increment of every month. Even now as we talk, we don't know what is going to come up if they are not just going to give up to say, we are not going to increase, maybe we will increase. Today is a month end, in case you don't know. It's now, you see, where some of the people had to use those innuendos of the monthly kind of arrangement, where we have to review this. I have said time and again that was suicide. If you look at what PF, the increments that PF did, do you know that PF was increasing fuel, if we are to have an average, 90 ngwe per year? Do you agree with me or you don't agree with me? So that I can calculate for you.
I agree.
Not with a fake calculator, but with a real calculator. When you look at 8.9 kwacha, the time they were living, it was at 17 kwacha. Now, you subtract and then find the average. On average, PF increased fuel on 90 ngwe per year. Our friends have been just there 1 year, 6 months, and they have increased the fuel on the maximum, 13 kwacha per 1 year and 4 months. So we know where we're going. Another factor, I think, which require morality.
Yes.
Because we are talking about national values here.
Exactly.
It's the inch of debt. You were told, especially you young people, you were told, they have borrowed too much, and the money they have borrowed, they are not using it for anything. They are just stealing and sharing contracts and so forth.
Yes.
PF borrowed external debt. I'm not talking about domestic debt. Borrowed $13.5 billion in 10 years. Out of that $14.5 billion, PF inherited $2.9 billion, which I would like to suspect that the current Minister of Finance had to play with it, because he was a Minister of Finance then, Dr. Musokotwani. I would like just to suspect that that would have been borrowed because of the Formula 1 road, which the late RB was encouraging. May his soul rest in peace. Now, if PF borrowed 13.5 billion, let us just say that all of that much is for PF without subtraction. And we saw that some of the things which I can qualify, PF invested in energy. It found only 1.6 megawatts countrywide. The time PF was leaving power, the megawatts remained at 3.2 plus megawatts, which is a plus, which even gave the confidence for President Ichilema to say that there will be no road shedding, because the technicians within the energy sector informed him that by the time investment is in a shine. So if you say there will be no road shedding, you will be seated well. And indeed, there wouldn't have been road shedding has it not been for the exports that we were making, because we invested in hydropower. Now, the moral question, which is also talking about morality and ethics, which is pillar number 1 in Article 8 of the Constitution, is, did we invest? Yes, we invested. Did we borrow? Yes, we borrowed. We borrowed for what? Because I've heard the excited mouths say they borrowed for consumption. What consumption? Infrastructure is not consumption. Even some of the young people used to say, but
Honorable, the argument has been that most of the roads were procured at an exorbitant cost. But in that the prices were inflated. But the standard of the road or the quality of the road is poor.
No.
If you go in most communities, Honorable, you'd find that those roads that were constructed 4 or 5 years ago, most of them are washed away by the roads.
Can I take you to Kaunda Square and other places and see whether those have been washed away?
Also extend the invitation to Chawama and other places, Honorable.
Yes, no, but you should also understand Chawama is an waterlogged press. And when we talk about waterlogged press, even now,
and
I was in Chawama yesterday. They have done ditches. Kanyama and Chawama, these are waterlogged presses. So sometimes when we were making these arguments,
don't you? Isn't it necessary for the administration to make a road that is climate resilient?
There you are right, and I agree with you. So let us not pick where weaknesses are, weaknesses of act of God. You cannot control God. If God says, I'm going to pass water here, you can't. You're just a human being. God is God. So those areas you have mentioned, if I can go with you here, let us wear gumboots. You find that what have compromised roads. Sometimes it's easier to say you work a weather there in the city. We will see the weather-friendly roads that they are going to make. Even as I speak, they have only budgeted 250 million in the 2023 budget, which is even artificial, because that one cannot make any roads, because they are targeting 600 kilometers roads countrywide. Do you know how much one road, which you are calling quality roads, would cost? A quality road, gravel, would cost between 750,000 to 1 million, to 1.4 million. That's quality, with drainage, well compacted, and all weather. When you come to a third road, which they were criticizing PF at $1 million, they are putting it at $1.4 million. So that was just politics.
So now we have also talking about financing.
It was just praying to the God.
Talking about financing.
Yes.
They also mentioned you mentioned that they have budgeted less resources towards the road construction. And their justification is that they are running a
PPP.
And we have seen them commission the Lusaka and Dola dual carriageway.
I can only say,
which they say PF wanted to inflate the figures at 1.2 billion.
Yes, and they put it at how much?
At 577 million US dollars.
Yes, but do you know why PF had put in that? The requirements of the road and what they are putting in is different. that dual carriageway was supposed to carry even hotels and other things. I wish I would have come. If I knew that I would argue about that, I would have come with the components.
But why did the PF at that time opted to just focus on the surface road and not talk about other components? Probably people would have understood the concept.
If I give you an example, from the stadium to Kawangwe there, do you see that as a bad road? Even with the concrete that was put there.
A good road.
Yes. So if that continued up to Copper Belt, let's say Kitwe, with the lighting system, with everything, was that going to cost you that much? The $500,000 per kilometer. Was it going to cost that much? Some of these things that we do, we need to know that sometimes there is a smoke screen that is provided to hoodwink the masses. And then the masses start dancing to it. I think PF made certain mistakes, which I will not talk about.
Yes.
But you see, when we talk about the things they scored, let us give them credit. They used money from the treasury. So when we are looking at, before you took me away from the issue of the debt.
Exactly.
Yes, I was trying to still talk about morality. PF borrowed that much, isn't it?
Yes.
Then UPND, do you know what they have borrowed?
Yes, they are borrowing.
Yes,
still borrowing.
How much have they borrowed? If you have an idea.
For now, I can't recall the actual figure.
You pick like a small book in green, light green. It's written a borrowing plan, which was submitted even to Parliament, and even you as a member of the public, especially as a journalist, which is the fourth estate of our arrangement. You can pick it. First, in the first year, 2022, they borrowed $3.2 billion dollars. Then they have borrowed another $3 billion, meaning in 2 years. In 2 years, sir, UPND alone has borrowed $6 billion. Whether you call them concession loans or something like that, even when you call them concession loans, it's just semantics. This is money that you, if you became a president one day, you'll be paying on behalf of UPND or any other government that contracted the money. So, this being the case, we know, for instance, that this IMF deal was more like a plastic deal. That was just not it was psychological. Let me explain to you. That one was more like, yeah, I've been mistrusted so much by possibly people that are supposed to lend me some money. So since people who are supposed to lend me some money have mistrusted me, let me buy a Bugatti vehicle. Let me also buy a good mansion out of borrowed money.
Yes.
You go and borrow from Peter, you buy a Bugatti vehicle, you buy a good mansion, so that those who are supposed to give you money, when they see you with a Bugatti vehicle, when they see you with a mansion, they are going to have confidence that you are actually